What's going on, everybody? Donnie here with another video, and today we're back again for my third year of NHL standings predictions. In terms of the top 3 last year, I nailed 2 of the top 3 in the Atlantic with Tampa and Toronto, and 2 of the top 3 in the Metro with Columbus and Pittsburgh. Let's try to do a little better this year. This year's video will be similar to last year's video, with the Eastern Conference in this video, Western Conference in another. That'll probably come out tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled and just watch out for it. Let's get started on the Eastern Conference. From best to worst, last year's Metro had the Stanley Cup champions Capitals, along with the Penguins, Flyers, Blue Jackets, Devils, Hurricanes, Islanders, and Rangers. The winner of the Metropolitan Division is going to have to be the Washington Capitals. Why? Well, there's a few big reasons. First things first, I don't expect Holtby to have a .907 save percentage in the regular season next year. My guess is the Capitals will maintain a solid .915 save percentage as a team next year with Holtby and Copley in net. This Capitals roster is largely the same as last year's, and tossing a lot of the youth like Vrana and Burakovsky another offseason and grow and get stronger will likely only mean improved results from the Capitals forward core. With a defensive core of Juice, Carlson, Orlov, and Niskanen as your top 4, it's a very workable top 4 defensively as well, giving the Capitals a good shot to be as good or better than they were last year. Oh yeah, and then those guys Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Oshie, and the gang. This team should be great. Number 2 in the Metro is going to be the Philadelphia Flyers. This Flyers team may have the best forward core in hockey right now, with Claude Giroux, Sean Couturier, Wayne Simmons, Voracek, Van Riemsdyk, Travis Konechny, and Nolan Patrick all set to play significant roles in helping the Flyers surpass the 98 points they had a season prior. Frankly, the Flyers have had a tremendous offseason. They lost almost nobody worth any value to the roster they currently have, and added JVR, who will only strengthen their already dominant core of wings. The Flyers' success will again come down to the goaltending, and I expect the tandem of Elliott and Pickard to be somewhere just below league average. With a strong young D-core led by Ivan Provorov and Shane Gostisbehere, we could see this Flyers team go out and score a ton of goals this year, potentially being near the top of the league. I expect them to sneak into the 2 spot in the Metro. Metro spot number 3 will go to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I lack excitement for this Penguins roster, with a couple of reasons as for that lack of excitement. 1, the Penguins didn't really do anything to strengthen their roster. While they've got Crosby, Malkin, Kessel, Gensel, Hornqvist, the usual subjects, there's still a lack of dominance on the wing outside their top 6. Daniel Sprong slotted in to start the season near the bottom of the forward rotation, and frankly, Dominic Simone and Brian Rust don't really do much for me. With newly signed Liga player Juuso Ricola and the aforementioned Jack Johnson set up to play big minutes with Letang and Mata in front of the goaltender, coming off an atrocious year in Matt Murray, the Penguins will likely need to make a few moves this season to cement themselves. As of now, I'll take the Penguins as a 3 seed and just barely. On to the Atlantic top 3. This should be a bit easier to predict than any of the other divisions. Top to bottom in 2017, we had Tampa, Boston, Toronto, Florida, Detroit, Montreal, Ottawa, and Buffalo. So, who's winning the Atlantic? I think at this point it's clear to me that the Lightning will dominate most of the competition like they did for much of the last year and win the Atlantic. This Lightning team is also very similar to last year's roster, with a full season of JT Miller and Ryan McDonough added on top of Victor Hedman, Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Yanni Gourde, Tyler Johnson, and Andre Palat. With Mikhail Sergachev, Anton Strawman, Dan Girardi, and Braden Coburn rounding out the D-core, the Lightning have one of the strongest two-way cores in all of the NHL. Not to mention, they've got one of the best young goalies in the game in Andrei Vasilevsky too, just to support the notion that this Lightning team could be insane. Even after not pulling through and grabbing Erik Karlsson in the offseason, this Lightning team should still be a favorite to win it all. Number 2 has to be the Leafs. The Leafs won free agency by grabbing John Tavares to pair with Austin Matthews in what could end up rivaling Crosby and Malkin for the league's best 1-2 punch down the middle. The big news that has recently overshadowed this Tavares signing is the fact that William Nylander still remains unsigned. Nylander could absolutely be what the Leafs need in terms of being able to compete with the Lightning. Grabbing Tavares and losing Nylander for an extended period of time would likely end up being a wash in terms of success. And while I believe Nylander will eventually be signed, every game they lose out on having Willie in the lineup will hurt them. With Marlowe, Marner, Hyman, Kadri, Ennis all likely to have great years in support roles, this Leafs team is missing Nylander for a top scoring role. The Leafs defense could also use a bit of work, and while Ron Hainsey's still a decent enough defender, it may be a good idea to start thinking towards the future and grabbing some help for Riley, Gardner, and Zaitsev. If Freddie Anderson can have the type of year he had last year, I expect the Leafs to overcome adversity and grab the number 2 slot pretty easily. The 3rd spot in the Atlantic should go to the Boston Bruins. This is a Bruins team that didn't lose much in free agency also, outside of some smaller guys like Riley Nash, Nick Holden, and Tim Schaller. These guys have been replaced by Joachim Nordstrom, Chris Wagner, and John Moore, generally a lateral move in terms of adding points. The Bruins top line is the league's most dominant two-way line in the league, in Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak. Assuming they can all stay healthy, this line could absolutely be the reason the Bruins are successful this upcoming year. The Bruins' bottom 6 is nothing exciting, but with young guys like DeBrusk, Donato, and Heinen all being asked to do more, we'll see if they can keep scoring like they were last year. Defensively, 20-year-old Charlie McAvoy and 41-year-old Zdeno Chara will lead the way, with the aforementioned John Moore and Brandon Carlo all likely playing big roles while Torrey Krug heals up from injury. Can we see Tuukka Rask and Yaroslav Halak be the best goalie tandem in the league? There may definitely be some sort of potential there, and I'd like to think that Halak will be much better in a backup role behind what's likely one of the best teams he's played for in his career. The Bruins will probably lag slightly behind the pack, but they should still do numbers. So, the wildcard spots. Number 1 will have to be the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets have been the center of some trade talks with guys like Panarin and Bobrovsky, often rumored, but as of now with the roster they have, I can't see them missing the playoffs. This Blue Jackets roster is actually really strong, assuming they can stay healthy, with Panarin, Atkinson, Dubois, Wenberg, Bjorkstrand, Foligno, Jenner, Anderson, Riley Nash, and Anthony Duclair all likely going to chip in a bit offensively. Columbus could see a lot of scoring from top to bottom. When Seth Jones and Ryan Murray are healthy too, we could see big production out of them, as well as Zach Werenski and Marcus Nudivara defensively too, all led by elite goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky. I could see Columbus sneaking into a Metro spot quite easily, but for now I'll temper my expectations and leave them as wildcard 1. Wildcard number 2, the Florida Panthers. Now that we've had time to reflect, firing Gerard Gallant looks like it was absolutely the wrong thing to do, but at this point, I think the Panthers are in as good a spot as any to really make something special happen. Dadonov, Barkov, Bukestad, Huberdeau, Trocheck, and the newly added Mike Hoffman round out an incredibly talented top 6 for the Panthers. With a really solid defensive core of Yandel, Ekblad, Matheson, and Pissick all set to play big minutes, the biggest question of them all for the Panthers is about the goaltending. Can Luongo stay healthy? Can Reimer keep the Panthers going when Luongo is tired? Luongo is going to be turning 40 this year, and while he's coming off an incredible year, is he going to be able to maintain a workload of 40 plus games again? The answer looks like potentially it could be a yes, but after an injury-plagued year last year, there's really no guarantees. I could see the Panthers outdoing their 96 points from last season and sliding into the playoffs as wildcard number 2 fairly easily. Eastern Conference spot number 9 will go to the New Jersey Devils. Frankly, the Devils were lucky to get in the playoffs last year, and with how the season progressed, losing multiple guys for games and Keith Kincaid putting on his backpack and carrying them through the fire and flames to sneaking into the playoffs by just 1 point. Kincaid may have another heavy workload if Corey Schneider's as poor as he was last year, especially considering he hasn't played much hockey recently coming off a hip surgery. If the Devils are banking on health and Taylor Hall to carry them into the playoffs once again, they may end up faltering, especially considering they did approximately nothing in free agency and let some valuable pieces like Grabner, John Moore, and Patrick Maroon all walk without replacing them. This Devils team is primed for a regression, and with an over-reliance on forwards like Pavel Zacha, Nico Hischier, Kyle Palmieri, and Jesper Bratt, along with the oft-injured Marcus Johansson, and guys like Miles Wood, John Quenneville, Ben Lovejoy, Mirko Mueller, Sammy Vodinen, and Andy Green to all play big minutes, we can see this Devils team regress to around 90 points. I wouldn't be surprised if they snuck into the playoffs, but I really don't think they're that good. Number 10 in the conference will go to the Carolina Hurricanes. I could see this Hurricanes team being good, but some interesting trades that moved Hanifin, Skinner, and Lindholm for Dougie Hamilton and Michael Ferland may put this Canes team a year or two away. Sebastian Aho, Toivo Teravainen, Lucas Wallmark, Andrei Svechnikov, Brock McGinn, Nekash, Zykov, Slavin, Pesci, Dougie Hamilton, and Hayden Fleury, they're all under 26 years old. That's over half the roster just right there. With goaltending being a potential problem with Mrazek and Darling both better suited to be high-level backups, the Canes will likely falter down the line unless one of them turns in a great season. Jordan Staal, Justin Williams, Justin Falk, and newly signed Calvin DeHaan will have to have big years to push this Canes team into contention. I could see them close, but they likely won't be good enough to slide in just yet. Number 11 in the East will go to the Buffalo Sabres. It's about time that the Sabres really figured it out and got into contention. Jack Eichel's finally got a legitimate top-line winger with him and Jeff Skinner. And with scoring depth added like Sobotka, Berglund, Thompson, Connor Sheary to go with Reinhart, Middlestat, Okposo, Gergensen, and Pominville, the Sabres offense could be much improved this year. How will number 1 overall pick Rasmus Dahlin do? Nobody's entirely sure, but he'll have some decent company with Scandella, Ristolainen, McCabe, Beaulieu, and Bogosian likely rounding out the decor. Carter Hutton's slotting in to get the majority of starts for the Sabres, and if he can be anywhere as good as he's been as a backup, this Sabres team will be fun to watch on both ends of the ice. I could see them doing decent, but probably won't be good enough to make the playoffs just yet. Number 12 in the conference will go to the New York Islanders. Without Tavares, the Islanders went and spent some money to shore up their bottom 6 with Matt Martin, Leo Komarov, and Valtteri Filppula all signed to get gritty on the island. Robin Lehner is going to step in net and share with Thomas Greiss, which could be a slight upgrade on the lock. Other than that, it's not overly pretty. Matthew Barzal's a budding superstar, but how will guys like Anders Lee, Josh Bailey, and Jordan Eberle react now, all having to be much bigger parts of the offense without Tavares there to simplify everything? Can Anthony Beauvillier and Brock Nelson perform top-notch? Chances are the Islanders just aren't good enough on either side of the puck to really perform, but new coach Barry Trotz might help the team structure a bit, probably help them perform a bit better than they would have without him. I expect the Islanders to be pretty rough this season, probably about what they did last year. Number 13 in the conference will be the New York Rangers. As a Rangers fan, I can see this team being fun to watch in the offensive zone and an absolute mess to watch in the defensive zone. Henrik Lundqvist is going to have a lot of work to do to try to cover up this team's deficiencies, with guys like Mark Stahl, Adam McQuaid, and Tony DeAngelo all going to have a significant role in this team. The positive part for the Rangers? Good offensive core of young players. The Rangers have one forward over 27 years old on the roster, that being playmaker Matt Zuccarello. The Kreider, Zibanejad, Buchnevich line could be really good as ever, with David Quinn allowing for much more leeway, and players like Philip Hedl, Ryan Spooner, Vlad Nemesnikov, Kevin Hayes, Brett Howden, Jesper Fast, and Elias Anderson should all benefit greatly from the open style of hockey the Rangers will play. The Rangers are a crazy young hockey team right now, so I'd expect little mistakes here and there, but we could see some significant growth from top to bottom on this roster that'll likely be exciting to watch for the fans of the Blue Shirts. Third to last will probably be the Detroit Red Wings. Frankly, this is a team that's built to tank it out, likely being a big seller at the deadline with guys like Gustav Nyquist, Thomas Vanek, Nicholas Kronwall, Mike Green for a few. The young core of Larkin, Mantha, Athanasiou, Bertuzzi, Rasmussen, Chalowski, Hicketts, and Hronek should be fun to watch, and with Howard and Bernier in net, the goaltending should be generally pretty average across the board. The Red Wings don't have much going for them right now, and losing Zetterberg hurts a ton, so I'd expect them to be pretty bad in this upcoming year. Second to last, the Montreal Canadiens. I fully expect the Canadiens to be bad just looking at the projected lines. Tatar, Deneau, and Gallagher looks to be their first line, with Domi, Kotkaniemi, and Drouin as their second line. As much as I'd like to say this is a team with young potential, that's not really the case anymore with the top line all turning 26 or older this year. Domi's an interesting piece as is the youngster Kotkaniemi with Drouin, but this forward core and an inexperienced defensive core in front of Carey Price, I'd expect some pretty bad hockey to come out of Montreal this season. I'd say they'll either fight for like the third or fourth worst spot in the league, probably going to be down there and fight for a top 5 pick. Last in the East will be the Ottawa Senators, not like you expected anything else. Stone, Duchesne, Ryan, Kachuk, and Dzingel will all be pretty solid hockey players, but outside of that, it's a weird mixture of like young guys like Formenton and White, and then randoms like Magnus Payarvi and Tom Pyatt. Subtract Erik Karlsson from an already bad team, and a top 4 defensive core of Chris Weidman, Mark Borowiecki, Cody Ceci, and Thomas Chabot. Sens fans are in for an absolute treat this year. And by treat, I mean potentially a record-breaking bad season, and some trade deadline sell-offs to really ensure that every Senators fan in the world knows that they're going to be rebuilding for the next 5 years. Tough pill to swallow for the Senators fans, especially if Craig Anderson and Mike Condon are the usual average selves in net. They're definitely going to be the worst team in the league. Thanks everyone for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and comment on this video as well as like it for me. It does a lot for my channel. I'll have the Western Conference out tomorrow. Please make sure you check it out, subscribe, and I will see you all later.